Ha, I'm first again. I'm always first. Nope, can't read that one. Font's too small. Yes. Nope, font's just too small. Okay, we'll find another copy. Gutenberg. Project Gutenberg will do, because I can make that more bigger. Hello. Whomsoe'er you may be. There we go. Got it. The Adventure of the Copper Beeches. Also, the adventure of my fake fringe and my very fake clip and friggin'. At least this one tries to look like real here. These are just like, these are for fun. Hang on. I made a cup of tea before this and forgot about it. How was everybody's day? Oh. No one wants to tell me how their day went. That's fine. I don't want to tell you my secrets either. Not that I have any. Or if I did, you wouldn't know about them. Trust goes both ways, you guys. Hi, Danny. I was in La Visa today looking at all of the rainbow jewelry thinking, I should buy that for Danny. Because, you know. Oh, right, it's Thanksgiving. Yeah. See, I don't really understand it, but I know what it is. Well, we had our own Thanksgiving on the 23rd, which was my sister's birthday. And I give thanks that she was born every day of my life, because otherwise I would be insufferable. I'd be one of those Dunning-Kruger kids. Oh, I'd be writing opinion pieces with like the worst, most privileged takes possible. It would not be good. Oh, you're doing cross stitch. Nice. Sorry, just making myself beautiful for you guys. Oh, much better. What are you doing a cross stitch of? Oh, and also, hello, Ellen. I want to say hello to everyone by name. But sometimes I forget because I'm a human being. Oh, Dion. Oh, nice. Dion the champion. It was stomping time. And boy, did it stomp. I'm beginning to really like this webcam, by the way, because I don't have to be very careful with my makeup. Like, you can't tell that looks like shit. I mean, that doesn't look like shit. It looks really good. All right, we're sort of nearly 5 minutes in. It's just cold and rainy and dismal here today. But I've got a new stupid voice for Sherlock Holmes. I don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to find out together. As a team. Is John there with you, Danny? I assume he is. What's up, John? Okay, interesting Sherlock Holmes facts. Well, not interesting, but you know. At one point, one of Watson's wives calls him James. Watson's first name is John. So my theory is that she's married to a doctor in Victorian times. She is sipping laudanum all day, all day. She doesn't know what his name is, and she doesn't care. But Dorothy Sayers came up with a theory that the H in John H. Watson stands for Hamish, which is a Scottish version of the name James. And that's why his wife called him James that one time. Very convoluted. I think the answer is probably a lot more simple than that, which is that Conan Doyle was just making some money. And he knew nobody would really care. We didn't come here to look at Watson. Oh, cool. Okay. He does want to hear, though, right? Like, don't turn the volume up so he has to hear me. Yeah, he forgot his own name. He told her it was James when he was starting out. He met her and he was so gobsmacked. He's like, James Watson. And then he had to just keep it up forever. If you're in olden times, the laudanum flowed like Pepsi Max. That's how I begin my book. The Victorians. How did they really live? Based on some dreams I had. All right, this is the 12th story, the last story in The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, the first short story compilation, what most people consider the best ones. Yeah. Watson's wives would just sometimes die, and he would have to go back and move in with Holmes again. I'm living in his head rent-free. Okay, let's see if this new stupid voice works. The Adventure of the Copper Beeches. To the man who loves art for its own sake, remarked Sherlock Holmes, hopefully in the voice of Janice Soprano a little bit, tossing aside the advertisement sheet of the Daily Telegraph. It is frequently, in its least important and lowliest manifestations, that the keenest pleasure is to be derived. It is pleasant to me to observe, Watson, it's hard. It's really hard. That you have so far grasped this truth that in the little records of our cases, which you have been good enough to draw up, and, I am bound to say, occasionally to embellish, you have given prominence not so much to the many cause célèbres and sensational trials in which I have figured, but rather to those incidents which may have been trivial in themselves, but which have given room for those faculties of deduction and of logical synthesis, which I have made my special province. I can't fucking do it. I really wanted to be Janice Soprano for Sherlock Holmes. Really wanted to. I had a great-great-grandfather who was John, but he was called Ian by his family. Not quite sure why. Damn it. Okay, I'm going to have to make Holmes someone else. I'm going to have to work on the Janice Soprano voice because I really want it. So what do you reckon? What do you reckon for Sherlock Holmes? The Knives Out voice? Well, I'm just a pretend southern detective from a vaguely southern area. I can't do pity boop the whole time for Sherlock Holmes. He talks too much. I could make him Scottish, but it's not really a funny accent. It's just the easiest one. I loved you, Tony Soprano. Oh well, we'll make it. Okay. I was just looking at it thinking I could do Dracula. And yet, said I, smiling, my inner monologue is Kiwi, but my voice is Scottish, because it's an easy one for Katrin to do. Here, I said, smiling, I cannot quite hold myself absolved from the charge of sensationalism which has been urged against my records. You have erred, perhaps, he observed, taking up a glowing cinder with the tongs and lighting with it the long cherry-wood pipe, which was wont to replace his clay when he was in a disputatious, rather than a meditative mood. You have erred, perhaps, in attempting to put colour and life into each of your statements, instead of confining yourself to the task of placing upon the record that severe reasoning from cause to effect, which is really the only notable feature about the thing. My name is Sherlock Holmes, and I am a Dracula of some kind. It seems to me that I have done you full justice in the matter, I remarked with some coldness, for I was repelled by the egotism which I had more than once observed to be a strong factor in my friend's singular character. No, it is not selfishness or conceit, said he, answering, as was his wont, my thoughts rather than my words. Dracula confirmed. Shit. If I claim full justice for my art, it is because it is an impersonal thing, a thing beyond myself. Crime is common, logic is rare. Therefore, it is upon the logic rather than upon the crime that you should dwell. You have degraded what should have been a course of lectures into a series of tales. It was a cold morning of the early spring, and we sat after breakfast on either side of a cheery fire in the old room at Baker Street. A thick fog rolled down between the lines of dun-coloured houses, and the opposing windows loomed like dark, shapeless blurs through the heavy yellow wreaths. Our gas was lit, and shone on the white cloth and glimmer of china and metal, for the table had not been cleared yet. Yeah, Holmes sometimes has a very Sister Olivia outlook on things. Just write it down so that people can learn how to deduce things properly. And Watson's like, no, because I can't remember how you did it. Okay, question. Should we stick with Dracula Holmes, or should we make him Megan Holmes? And would that work? Oh, we've already tried something that didn't work. Let's try something else that might not work. Sherlock Holmes had been silent all the morning, dipping continuously into the advertisement columns of a succession of papers until at last, having apparently given up his search, he had emerged in no very sweet temper to lecture me upon my literary shortcomings. A bit of crap. At the same time, he remarked after a pause, during which he had sat puffing at his long pipe and gazing down into the fire. You can hardly be open to a charge of sensationalism, for out of those cases which you have been so kind as to interest yourself in, a fair proportion did not treat of crime in its legal sense at all. The small matter in which I endeavoured to help the King of Bohemia, the singular experience of Miss Mary Sutherland, the problem connected with the man with the twisted lip, and the incident of the noble bachelor, were all matters which are outside the pale of the law. But in avoiding the sensational, I fear that you may have bordered on the trivial. The end may have been so, I answered, but the methods I hold to have been novel and of interest. Pshaw. My dear fellow, what are the public, the great unobservant public who could hardly tell a weaver by his tooth, or a compositor by his left thumb, care about the finer shades of analysis and deduction? But indeed, if you are trivial, I cannot blame you. For the days of the great cases, past, man, or criminal man, has lost all enterprise and originality. And as my own little practice, it seems to be degenerating into an agency for recovering lost lead pencils and giving advice to young ladies from boarding schools. I think that I've touched bottom at last, however. This note I had this morning marks my 0 point, I fancy. Ugh, read it. He tossed a crumpled letter across to me. Okay, good. I'm glad that this is good. Because A, the voice is easier, and B, hearing Holmes as a petulant, vocal-fried millennial woman really adds something, I feel. Although 2 people have left since I started doing it. I don't care, the good ones stayed. It was dated from Montague Place upon the preceding evening and ran thus. Dear Mr. Holmes, here I am. I am very anxious to consult you as to whether I should, or should not, accept a situation which has been offered to me as a governess. I shall call at 10:30 tomorrow, if I do not inconvenience you. Yours faithfully, Violet Hunter. Do you know the young lady? I asked. Not I. It's 10:30 now. Yeah. And I have no doubt that is her ring. It may turn out to be of more interest than you think. You remember that the affair of the blue carbuncle, which appeared to be a mere whim at first, developed into a serious investigation. It may be so in this case also. Well, let's hope so. But our doubts will very soon be solved because here, unless I'm much mistaken, is the person in question. As he spoke, the door opened, and a young lady entered the room. She was plainly but neatly dressed, with a bright, quick face, freckled like a plover's egg, and with the brisk manner of a woman who has had her own way to make in the world. "You'll excuse my troubling you, I'm sure," said she, as my companion rose to greet her. "But I've had a very strange experience. And as I have no parents or relations of any sort from whom I could ask advice, I thought that perhaps you would be kind enough to tell me what I should do." "Yeah, pray take a seat, Miss Hunter. I shall be happy to do anything I can to serve you." I could see that Holmes was favourably impressed by the manner and speech of his new clients. Well, I read that wrong. He looked her over in his searching fashion, and then composed himself, with his lids drooping and his fingertips together, to listen to her story. That's what that probably looked like. "I've been a governess for 5 years," said she, "in the family of Colonel Spence Munro. But 2 months ago, the Colonel received an appointment at Halifax in Nova Scotia and took his children over to America with him, so that I found myself without a situation. I advertised, and I answered advertisements, but without success. At last, the little money which I had saved began to run short, and I was at my wit's end as to what I should do. There is a well-known agency for governesses in the West End, called Westaway's, and there I used to call about once a week in order to see whether anything had turned up which might suit me. Westaway was the name of the founder of the business, but it's really managed by Miss Stoper. She sits in her own little office, and the ladies who are seeking employment wait in an anteroom and are then shown in one by one when she consults the ledgers and sees whether she has anything which would suit them. Well, when I called last week, I was shown into the little office as usual, but I found that Miss Stoper was not alone. A prodigiously stout man with a very smiling face and a great heavy chin sat at her elbow with a pair of glasses on his nose, looking very earnestly at the ladies who entered. As I came in, he gave quite a jump in his chair and turned quickly to Miss Stoper. "That will do," said he. I'm a pretty good mimic, and he sounds like Dracula. "I could not ask for anything better. Capital, capital. He seemed quite enthusiastic and rubbed his hands together in the most genial fashion. He was such a comfortable-looking man that it was quite a pleasure to look at him. Violet Hunter likes the dad bod. You are looking for a situation, miss? He asked. Yes, sir. As governess? Yes, sir. And what salary, do you ask? I had £4 a month in my last place with Colonel Spence Munro. Oh, tut tut, sweating, rank sweating, he cried, throwing his hands out in the air like a man who's in a boiling passion. How could anyone offer so beautiful a sum to a lady with such attractions and accomplishments? Violet, don't go. My accomplishments, sir, may be less than you imagine, said I. A little French, a little German, music, drawing. Tut, tut, he cried. This is all quite beside the question. The point is, have you or have you not the bearing and deportment of a lady? There it is in a nutshell. If you have not, you are not fitted for the rearing of a child who may someday play a considerable part in the history of the country and of vampire literature. But if you have, why then, how could any gentleman ask you to condescend to accept anything under the 3 figures? Your salary with me, madam, would commence at £100 a year. One! Ha ha ha! I'm not going to count to 100. You may imagine, Mr. Holmes, that to me, destitute as I was, such an offer seemed almost too good to be true. The gentleman, however, seeing perhaps the look of incredulity upon my face, opened a pocketbook and took out a note. It is also my custom, said he, smiling in the most pleasant fashion, to advance to my young ladies half their salary beforehand, so that they may meet any little expenses of their journey and their wardrobe. It seemed to me that I had never met so fascinating and so thoughtful a man. As I was already in debt to my tradesman, the advance was a great convenience, and yet there was something unnatural about the whole transaction, which made me wish to know a little more before I quite committed myself. May I ask where you live, sir? Said I. Hampshire, charming rural place. The Copper Beeches, 5 miles on the far side of Winchester. It is the most lovely country, my dear young lady, and the dearest old country house. And my duties, sir? I should be glad to know what they will be. One child. One dear little romper, just 6 years old. Oh, if you could see him killing cockroaches with a slipper. Smack, smack, smack. Oh, God, you've got a dark triad, child. 3 gone before you could wink. He leaned back in his chair and just laughed his eyes into his head again. I was a little startled at the nature of the child's amusement, but the father's laughter made me think that perhaps he was joking. My sole duties then, I asked, are to take charge of a single child. No, not the soul, not the soul, my dear young lady, he cried. Your duty would be, as I am sure your good sense would suggest, to obey any little commands my wife might give, provided always that they were such commands as a lady might with propriety obey. You see no difficulty, huh? I should be quite happy to make myself useful. They want you for a threesome. Quite so. In dress now, for example. We are faddy people, you know. Faddy but kind-hearted. If you were asked to wear any dress which we might give you, you would not object to our little whim, huh? No, said I, considerably astonished at his words, as I hope my tone implied. Or to sit here, or sit there. That would not be offensive to you. No? Or to cut your hair quite short before you come to us? Oh, I could hardly believe my ears. As you may observe, Mr. Holmes, my hair is somewhat luxuriant and of a rather peculiar tint of chestnut. It has been considered artistic. I could not dream of sacrificing it in this offhand fashion. I'm afraid that is quite impossible, said I. He had been watching me eagerly out of his small eyes, and I could see a shadow pass over his face as I spoke. I am afraid that it is quite essential, said he. It is a little fancy of my wife's, and the ladies' fancies, you know, madam. Ladies' fancies must be consulted. And so, you won't cut your hair? No, sir, I really could not, I answered firmly. Ah, very well. Then that quite settles the matter. It is a pity, because in other respects you would really have done very nicely. In that case, Miss Stopper, I had best inspect a few more of your young ladies. This dude sounds way more creepy in a Dracula accent, but what he's saying is also not right, really. The manageress had sat all this while busy with her... The manageress had sat all this while busy with her papers. Sorry, my voice changed for a second just then. I forgot myself. Without a word to any of us, but she glanced at me now with so much annoyance upon her face that I could not help suspecting that she had lost a handsome commission through my refusal. Do you desire your name to be kept upon the books? She asked. I'm quite good at doing her voice as well. If you please, Miss Stoper. Well, really, it seems rather useless, since you refuse the most excellent offers in this fashion, said she sharply. You can hardly expect us to exert ourselves to find another such opening for you. Good day to you, Miss Hunter. She struck a gong upon the table, and I was shown out by the page. Well, Mr. Holmes, when I got back to my lodgings, I found little enough in the cupboard and 2 or 3 bills upon the table. I began to ask myself whether I had not done a very foolish thing. After all, if these people had strange fads and expected obedience on the most extraordinary matters, they were at least ready to pay for their eccentricity. These days we know not to do anything like that. I would hope we all know this. Very few governesses in England are getting £100 a year. Besides, what use was my hair to me? Many people are improved by wearing it short, and perhaps I should be among the number. Next day, I was inclined to think that I'd made a mistake, and by the day after, I was sure of it. I had almost overcome my pride so far as to go back to the agency and inquire whether the place was still open, when I received this letter from the gentleman himself. I have it here, and I will read it to you, but in his voice, not mine, so you don't get confused. The Copper Beeches, near Winchester. Dear Miss Hunter, Miss Stoper has very kindly given me your address, and I write from here to ask whether you have reconsidered your decision. My wife is very anxious that you should come, for she has been much attracted by my description of you. Oh my God, go run. We are willing to give £30 a quarter, or £120 a year, so as to recompense you for any little inconvenience which our fads may cause you. They are not very exacting, after all. My wife is fond of a particular shade of electric blue, and would like you to wear such a dress indoors in the morning. I need a drink. Oh, I've got water down here. Nice. You need not, however, go to the expense of purchasing one, as we have one belonging to my dear daughter Alice, now in Philadelphia, which would, I should think, fit you very well. Then, as to sitting here or there, or amusing yourself in any manner indicated, that need cause you no inconvenience. I threw that in for Blackadder. Oh, Fitzik! My tiny love, I know it's raining out there. Well, you shouldn't be out there. Soz. As regards your hair, it is no doubt a pity, especially as I could not help remarking its beauty during our short interview with the vampire. But I am afraid that I must remain firm upon this point, and I only hope that the increased salary, £120, I didn't think I'd do it again, but I did, may recompense you for the loss. Your duties, as far as the child is concerned, are very light. Now do try to come, and I shall meet you with the dog cart at Winchester. Let me know your train. Yours faithfully, Jeffro Rucastle. Oh, I'm not a doing voices person. I always feel stupid doing these because Josh has such an incredible imitative ability and range, but I do this so that classic works of literature and modern works of Frankenstein-based erotica can sound more stupider. Oh my god, I guess it was I who went to Jupiter to get more stupider. That is the letter which I have just received, Mr. Holmes, and my mind is made up that I will accept it. I thought, however, that before taking the final step, I should like to submit the whole matter to your consideration. What? Oh. Well, Miss Hunter, if your mind is, made up, that settles the question, said Holmes, smiling. Thank you. I can only do stupid voices. Sorry, the Scottish one isn't stupid. I practiced it for a stupid reason, but it's not inherently very funny. But you would not advise me to refuse. Well, I mean, I confess that it is not the situation which I would like to see a sister of mine apply for. What is the meaning of it all, Mr. Holmes? Oh, I have no data. I cannot tell. Perhaps you yourself have formed some opinion? Well, there seems to me to be only one possible solution. Mr. Rucastle seemed to be a very kind, good-natured man. Is it not possible that his wife is a lunatic? That he desires to keep the matter quiet for fear she should be taken to an asylum? And that he humours her fancies in every way in order to prevent an outbreak? Yeah, it's a possible solution, yeah. I mean, in fact, like, as matters stand, it is the most probable one. But in any case, it doesn't seem to be a nice household for a young lady. But the money, Mr. Holmes, the money! Well, yes, of course, the pay is good, but, like, too good. And that's what makes me uneasy. Because, like, why should they give you £120 a year when they could have their pick for £40? Like, there must be some sus reason behind it. Strong reason behind. Megan said sus instead. But I don't think that ruined anything. Also, hi Josh. I thought that if I told you the circumstances, you would understand afterwards if I wanted your help. I should feel so much stronger if I felt that you were at the back of me. Oh, yeah, you may carry that feeling away with you. Yeah. I assure you that your little problem promises to be the most interesting which has come my way for some months. There is something distinctly novel about some of the features. Okay, if you should find yourself in, like, doubt or in danger. In danger? What danger do you foresee? Holmes shook his head gravely. It would cease to be a danger if we could define it, said he. But at any time, day or night, like, a telegram would bring me down to your help. So, that's enough. She rose briskly from her chair with the anxiety all swept from her face. I shall go down to Hampshire quite easy in my mind now. I shall write to Mr. Rucastle at once, sacrifice my poor hair tonight, and start for Winchester tomorrow. With a few grateful words to Holmes, she bade us both good night and bustled off upon her way. At least, said I, as we heard her quick, firm steps descending the stairs, she seems to be a young lady who is very well able to take care of herself. Yeah, she would need to be, said Holmes gravely. I am much mistaken if we do not hear from her before many days are past. It was not very long before my friend's prediction was fulfilled. A fortnight went by, during which I frequently found my thoughts turning in her direction, and wondering what strange side alley of human experience this lonely woman had strayed into. The unusual salary, the curious conditions, the light duties, all pointed to something abnormal, though whether a fad or a plot, whether the man were a philanthropist or a villain, it was quite beyond my powers to determine. As to Holmes, I observed that he sat frequently for half an hour on end with knitted brows and an abstracted air, but he swept the matter away with a wave of his hand when I mentioned it. Data! 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 He cried impatiently. I can't make bricks without clay. And yet he would always wind up by muttering that no sister of his should ever have accepted such a situation. I love watching the viewers tune in and then tune out almost immediately once they realize this is stupid voices, Holmes, even though it is clearly stated in the tweet. The telegram which we eventually received came late one night, just as I was thinking of turning in, and Holmes was settling down to one of those all-night chemical researches which he frequently indulged in. Holmes did indulge in chemical researches of the research kind as well. When I would leave him stooping over a retort and a test tube at night, and find him in the same position when I came down to breakfast in the morning. He opened the yellow envelope, and then glancing at the message, threw it across to me. Just look up the trains in Bradshaw, said he, and turned back to his chemical studies. The summons was a brief and urgent one. Oh, I also totally forgot about Thanksgiving or whatever. Please be at the Black Swan Hotel at Winchester at midday tomorrow, it said. Do come. I'm at my wit's end. Hunter. The lady's name is Violet Hunter, in case you've forgotten. What are they doing? Will you come with me? Asked Holmes, glancing up. I should wish to. Okay, you look it up then. There is a train at 9:30, said I, glancing over my Bradshaw. Bradshaw, it's hard to explain. Train internet. It's just wrong. That's not right. It is due at Winchester at 11:30. Yeah, okay, that'll do very nicely. Perhaps I better postpone my analysis of the acetones. So we may need to be at our best in the morning. By 11 o'clock the next day, we were well upon our way to the old English capital. Holmes had been buried in the morning papers all the way down, but after we had passed the Hampshire border, he threw them down and began to admire the scenery. You don't get your tea just yet. You've got plenty of bickies, okay? If you're hungry, eat bickies. And if you just love me, come up here. Except I don't think that's it remotely. Fitzy up. No, he's not doing it. Oh, stay in Winchester. Began to admire the scenery. It was an ideal spring day, a light blue sky, flecked with little fleecy white clouds drifting across from west to east. I feel like this bit is Watson describing things too sort of bucolically, because Holmes told him off for explaining things earlier. Oh, no, you don't. That's my custard square. It's not for big boys. It's just for girls. That's what I tell him. Because big boys means cats, doesn't it? The sun was shining very brightly, and yet there was an exhilarating nip in the air which set an edge to a man's energy. I remember being able to feel that. Well, vaguely. All over the countryside, away to the rolling hills around Aldershot, the little red and grey roofs of the farmsteadings peeped out from amid the light green of the new foliage. Are they not fresh and beautiful? I cried, with all the enthusiasm of a man fresh from the fogs of Baker Street. My internal monologue is different from my speaking voice. I don't know how often I'm going to restate this, but I just want to make it really clear. But Holmes shook his head gravely. Do you know, Watson, said he, it is just one of the curses of a mind with a turn like mine that I must look at everything with reference to my own special subject. Like, you look at these scattered houses and you're impressed by their beauty. I look at them and, like, the only thought which comes to me is a feeling of their isolation and of the impunity with which crime may be committed there. Good heavens, I cried. Who would associate crime with these dear old homesteads? They always fill me with a certain horror. Like, it's my belief, Watson, founded upon my own experience, that the lowest and vilest alleys in London do not present a more dreadful record of sin than just the smiling and beautiful countryside. You horrify me. But the reason's obvious. Okay, so the pressure of public opinion can do in the town what the law cannot accomplish. Like, there's no lane so vile that the scream of a child or the thud of a drunkard's blow does not beget, like, sympathy and indignation among the neighbours. And then the whole machinery of justice is ever so close that a word of complaint can set it going. And there's but one step between the crime and, like, the dock. But look at these lonely houses, like, they're each in their own fields. They're filled for the most part with poor, sorry but ignorant folk who know little of the law. Just, like, think of the deeds of hellish cruelty and, like, the hidden wickedness which may go on year in, year out in such places, and, like, none the wiser. I mean, had this lady who appeals to us for help gone to live in Winchester, I would never have had a fear for her. It's the 5 miles of country which makes the danger. So it is clear that she's not, like, personally threatened. Yes. Yes. No, if she can come to Winchester to meet us, she can get away. Quite so. She has her freedom. What can be the matter then? Can you suggest no explanation? I have devised 7 separate explanations, each of which would cover the facts as far as we know them. Which of these is correct can only be determined by the fresh information, which we shall no doubt find waiting for us. Oh, there's the tower of the cathedral. We shall soon learn all that Miss Hunter has to tell. I know that Holmes is into finding out what this is, but Megan's not really a high-effort person. The Black Swan is an inn of repute in the High Street, at no distance from the station, and there we found the young lady waiting for us. She had engaged a sitting room, just a wee private room in the inn, and our lunch awaited us upon the table. I am so delighted that you've come, she said earnestly. It is so very kind of you both, but indeed I do not know what I should do. Your advice will be altogether invaluable to me. Pray tell us what has happened to you. This line isn't credited to Holmes or Watson, but I feel like it's a Watson line. I will do so. Anna must be quick, for I've promised Mr. Rucastle to be back before 3. I got his leave to come into town this morning, though he little knew for what purpose. Yeah, let us have everything in their due order. That was due, by the way, for my American followers. I know it sounds like a J word. It's not. Holmes thrust his long, thin legs out towards the fire. I can't show you what that would look like. And composed himself to listen. That's what that might look like, though. In the first place, I must say that I have met, on the whole, with no actual ill treatment from Mr. and Mrs. Rucastle. It is only fair to them to say that. But I cannot understand them, and I'm not easy in my mind about them. Hey, David, welcome. I can't really recap it. This is Miss Violet Hunter. She accepted a position as a governess in a super weird house in the country, and Holmes was like, yeah, we're going to get a letter from her being like, come and help me. It is so weird. And they did. Yeah, about 36 minutes in, because we chatted for a little bit. With no actual ill treatment. It's only fair to say that, but I cannot understand them, and I'm not easy in my mind about them. What can you not understand? There are reasons for their conduct, but you shall have it all here, just as it occurred. So this is probably going to cover a lot of what you're wondering it is. When I came down, Mr. Rucastle met me here and drove me in his dog cart to the Copper Beeches. It is, as he said, beautifully situated. But it is not beautiful in itself, for it is a large square block of a house, whitewashed, but all stained and streaked with damp and bad weather. There are grounds around it, like woods on 3 sides, and on the 4th, a field which slopes down to the Southampton High Road, which curves past about 100 yards from the front door. The ground in front belongs to the house, but the woods all round are part of Lord Southerton's preserves. A clump of copper beeches immediately to the front of the hall door has given its name to the place. The Copper Beeches. Hey, that's the name of the story. I was driven over by my employer, who was as amiable as ever, and was introduced by him that evening to his wife and the child. There was no truth, Mr. Holmes, in the conjecture which seemed to us to be probable in your rooms at Baker Street. Mrs. Rucastle is not mad. I know, baby, but you gotta wait. You gotta wait till I'm... Oh, you know what? Do not wake any of the others. ISTG. Okay? Don't wake the others, alright? I can't explain to you what this is because I'm not sure which words they recognise. Come on. Come on. Up. Fitzy, up. Come on. Do you want it? Come on. Come and let the people see you. Come up this way. Here, I'll stack these things on top of each other so you've got lots of room. Fitzy. Fitzy. Do you know what the people want? They want their Fitzy content. Come on. Come on. Come on. He is completely failing to understand jumping up on the side of the couch. Come on. Yeah, but then you'd see my kitchen. It's like really messy. Okay, you can jump on my knee if you want. How would that be? Come on, Fitzy. Oops. Coming up? Fitz. Come on. Come on. You want some more, don't you? Oh, shit. Flora wasn't asleep at all. Ruh-roh. Come on, boy. Come on, Fitzy. Come on, Fitzy. Come on. Oh, God, he's such a pain. Well, I'll leave that there. Thank you. Yeah, the camera might not pick up how dirty the floor is and stuff, but I think it would probably pick up the bags of rubbish that haven't been collected yet. Yeah, you want that, so come up. Come on. Look. Look, here it is. Come on. Come on. No, you gotta come all the way up. Come on. Funny if there was no cat here. Interpretive reading is a kind word for what I'm doing. Come on, Fitzy. There are boys watching you. There are men watching you on the internet. Mother's slutty boy. Come on. Up. Come on. Flora's just watching. She doesn't even know what I've got. Hi-ho, Fitzy, away. It's just not happening. Are you going to vom? Do you want to go outside? No? If he jumps up, he jumps up. Mrs. Rucastle is not mad. Remember how they thought the wife might be mad? insane, I mean. I found her to be a silent, pale-faced woman, much younger than her husband. Not more than 30, I should think. While he can hardly be less than 45. Oh my God. From the conversation, I've gathered that they've been married about 7 years, that he was a widower, and that his only child, by the first wife, was the daughter who's gone to Philadelphia. No, Fitz is one of those cats who doesn't understand what things are, even though he's had them before a trillion times. He'll just suddenly stop understanding the couch. Come on. Fitzik. Flora? Come on, Flora. Whoever makes the best content for me gets some. Come on, sweetie. Come on, sweetie. Flora? What's that? Oh, yeah, I think she's going round. She's going round. She's coming up. No, she's not coming up. She is coming up. Come on, sweetie. Come on. All the way up. All the way up. Come on. That's a girl. Num, 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 num. Yummy. It's so nice for cats. Okay, now you've had some. I'm going to give Fitzy some because it's not his fault he doesn't understand how to be content. I'll give you some. I'm saving the rest for Niobe. Neither of them understand. Up. Flora, up. Come on. If it's not in frame, it doesn't exist. John Malkovich, Shadow of the Vampire. Look, my people can't see you. Donkus. Oh, I thought if I was quick, I could grab her. Anyway, you saw them a little bit. Just move that. Yeah. Let's carry on. Copper Beeches. He was a widower, and then his only child by the first wife was the daughter who had gone to Philadelphia. Mr. Rucastle told me in private the reason why she'd left them was that she had an unreasoning aversion to her stepmother. That's right. Sorry, Mr. Holmes. Sometimes just meow in conversation. It's just a tick. Nothing I can do. As the daughter could not have been less than 20, I can quite imagine that her position must have been uncomfortable with your father's young wife. Just a little bit, isn't it? Mrs. Rucastle seemed to me to be colourless in mind as well as in feature. Sorry to be a bitch, but she impressed me neither favourably nor the reverse. She was a non-entity. It was easy to see that she was passionately devoted both to her husband and to her little son. Her light grey eyes wandered continually from one to the other, noting every little want and forestalling it if possible. He was kind to her also in his bluff, boisterous fashion, and on the whole, they seemed to be a happy couple. I feel like Violet's in love with the dad. And yet, she had some secret sorrow, this woman. She would often be lost in deep thought with the saddest look upon her face. More than once, I've surprised her in tears. I've thought sometimes that it was the disposition of her child which weighed upon her mind, for I've never met so utterly spoiled and so ill-natured a little creature. He's small for his age, with a head which is quite disproportionately large. His whole life seems to be spent in an alternation between savage fits of passion and gloomy intervals of sulking. Giving pain to any creature weaker than himself seems to be his one idea of amusement. And he shows quite remarkable talent in planning the capture of mice, little birds, insects. But I would rather not talk about the creature, Mr. Holmes. And indeed, he has little to do with my story. Yeah, no, I'm glad of all the details, remarked my friend, whether they seem to you to be relevant or not. I shall try to not miss anything of importance. The one unpleasant thing about the house, which struck me at once, was the appearance and conduct of the servants. There are only two, a man and his wife. Toller, for that's his name, is a rough, uncouth man with grizzled hair and whiskers and a perpetual smell of drink. I'm getting the Australian voice mixed up with the Megan voice. Twice since I've been with him, he's been quite drunk, and yet Mr. Rucastle seemed to take no notice of it. His wife is a very tall and strong woman with a sour face, as silent as Miss Rucastle, and much less amiable. They are a most unpleasant couple, but fortunately I spend most of my time in the nursery and my own room, which are next to each other in one corner of the building. For 2 days after my arrival at the Copper Beeches, my life was very quiet. On the third, Mrs. Rucastle came down just after breakfast and whispered something to her husband. "Oh, yes," said he, turning to me. Remember that I can do his voice quite easily. I'm a natural mimic for that guy. "We are very much obliged to you, Miss Hunter, for falling in with our whims so far as to cut your hair. I assure you that it has not detracted in the tiniest iota from your appearance. We shall now see how the electric blue dress will become you. You will find it laid out upon the bed in your room, and if you would be so good as to put it on, we should both be extremely obliged." They've wanted her to cut her hair. He loves her hair. It's a very strange shade of chestnut, and to sometimes wear a blue dress. The dress which I found waiting for me was of a peculiar shade of blue. It was of excellent material, a sort of beige, but it bore unmistakable signs of having been worn before. It could not have been a better fit if I'd been measured for it. Both Mr. and Mrs. Rucastle expressed a delight at the look of it, which seemed quite exaggerated in its vehemence. They were waiting for me in the drawing room, which was a very large room stretching across the entire front of the house, with 3 long windows reaching down to the floor. A chair had been placed close to the centre window, with its back turned towards it. So in this, I was asked to sit, and then Mr. Rucastle, walking up and down on the other side of the room, began to tell me a series of the funniest stories that I've ever listened to. Oh, you cannot imagine how comical he was, and I laughed until I was quite weary. That's what that might sound like. Mrs. Rucastle, however, who has evidently no sense of humour, never so much as smiled, but sat with her hands in her lap and a sad, anxious look upon her face. After an hour or so, Mr. Rucastle suddenly remarked that it was time to commence the duties of the day, and that I might change my dress and go to little Edward in the nursery. 2 days later, this same performance was gone through under exactly similar circumstances. Oh, we've been going for over an hour. I need a drink again. Although, to be fair, a lot of that was me pausing because of the cats. Yeah, I did not find Crimson Peak scary at all. But Mia What's-Her-Face, I love her. Tom Hiddleston, ugh, don't like him. I mean, he's probably a nice person. So 2 days later, this same performance was gone through under exactly similar circumstances. Again, I changed my dress. Again, I sat in the window. And again, I laughed very heartily at the funny stories of which my employer had an immense repertoire and which he told inimitably. Then he handed me a yellow-back novel, and moving my chair a little sideways, that my own shadow might not fall upon the page, he begged me to read aloud to him. I read for about 10 minutes, beginning in the heart of a chapter, and then suddenly, in the middle of a sentence, he ordered me to cease and to change my dress. You can easily imagine, Mr. Holmes, how curious I became as to what the meaning of this extraordinary performance could possibly be. They were always very careful, I observed, to turn my face away from the window so that I became consumed with the desire to see what was going on behind my back. At first, it seemed to be impossible, but I soon devised a means. My hand mirror had been broken, so a happy thought seized me, and I concealed a piece of the glass in my handkerchief. On the next occasion, in the midst of my laughter, I put my handkerchief up to my eyes and was able, with a little management, to see all that there was behind me. I confess that I was disappointed. There was nothing. At least that was my first impression. At the second glance, however, I perceived that there was a man standing in the Southampton Road, a small bearded man in a grey suit, who seemed to be looking in my direction. The road is an important highway and there are usually people there. This man, however, was leaning against the railings which bordered our field and was looking earnestly up. I lowered my handkerchief and I glanced at Mrs. Rucastle to find her eyes fixed upon me with a most searching gaze. She said nothing, but I'm convinced that she had divined that I had a mirror in my hand and had seen what was behind me. She rose at once. "Jeffro," said she. I'm quite good at her voice as well. "There is an impertinent fellow upon the road there who stares up at Miss Hunter." "No friend of yours, Miss Hunter?" he asked. "Nah, I know no one in these parts." "Dear me, how very impertinent. Kindly turn around and motion to him to go away." "Surely it would be better to take no notice." No, we should have him loitering here always. Kindly turn round and wave him away like that." Probably not like that. That's more of a Dracula gesture to me. Jethro. No, sorry, Jeffro with an F. PH. Jephro. Jeffro. I think Conan Doyle may have misheard Jethro. Not sure. So I did as I was told, and at the same instant, Mrs. Rucastle drew down the blind. That was a week ago, and from that time, I've not sat again in the window, nor have I worn the blue dress, and nor seen the man in the road. Yeah, pray continue, said Holmes. Your narrative promises to be a most interesting one. Right, maybe. Oh, you'll find it rather disconnected, I fear, and there may prove to be little relation between the different incidents of which I speak. On the very first day that I was at the Copper Beeches, Mr. Rucastle took me to a small outhouse which stands near the kitchen door. As we approached it, I heard the sharp rattling of a chain and the sound as of a large animal moving around. "Look in here," said Mr. Rucastle, showing me a slit between two planks. I observed a photon, But then, like, being observed turned into two of them or something. It was. I went bananas. Sorry, no. I slipped between two planks. Is he not a beauty? I looked through and was conscious of two glowing eyes and of a vague figure huddled up in the darkness. Don't be frightened, said my employer, laughing at the start which I'd given. It's only Carlo, my mastiff. I call him mine, but really old Toller, my groom, is the only man who can do anything with him. We feed him once a day, and not too much then, so that he is always keen as mustard. Toller lets him loose every night, and God help the trespasser whom he lays his fangs upon. For goodness sake, don't you ever, on any pretext, set your foot over the threshold at night, for it's as much as your life is worth. Turning that guy into the Dracula was a good move, as it turns out. So the warning was no idle one. For 2 nights later, I happened to look out of my bedroom window about 2 o'clock in the morning. It was a beautiful moonlit night, and the lawn in front of the house was silvered over and almost as bright as day. I was standing wrapped in the peaceful beauty of the scene when I was aware that something was moving under the shadow of the copper beeches. As it emerged into the moonshine, I saw what it was. It was a giant dog. Mr. Holmes, they were the footprints of a gigantic hound. No, wrong story. Dog as large as a calf, tawny tilted, with hanging jowl, black muzzle, and huge projecting bones. Bones coming out of the dog? Scary. It walked slowly across the lawn and vanished into the shadow upon the other side. That dreadful sentinel sent a chill to my heart, which I do not think that any burglar could have done. And now I have a very strange experience to tell you. I need like a lemon and honey drink that's instantly, like you shake it and the shaking causes chemicals to make it heat up and then it's instantly ready. That'll be cool. I don't know if that's possible. I think if it is possible, you shouldn't drink it. And now I have a very strange experience to tell you. I had, as you know, cut off my hair in London and I'd placed it in a great coil at the bottom of my trunk. So one evening, after the child was in bed, I began to amuse myself by examining the furniture of my room and by rearranging my own little things. There was an old chest of drawers in the room, the 2 upper ones empty and open, the lower one locked. I'd filled the first 2 with my linen, and as I had still much to pack away, I was naturally annoyed at not having the use of the 3rd drawer. It struck me that it might have been fastened by a mere oversight, so I took out my bunch of keys and I tried to open it. The very first key fitted to perfection, and I drew the drawer open. That would be fantastic. There was only one thing in it, but I'm sure that you would never guess what it was. It was my coil of hair. I took it up and examined it. It was of the same peculiar tint and the same thickness, but then the impossibility of the thing obtruded itself upon me. How could my hair have been the thing locked in the drawer? With trembling hands, I undid my trunk, turned out the contents, and drew from the bottom my own hair. I laid the 2 tresses together, and I assure you that they were identical. Was it not extraordinary? Puzzle as I would, I could make nothing at all out of what it meant. I returned the strange hair to the drawer, But I said nothing of the matter to the Rucastles, as I felt that I'd put myself in the wrong by opening a drawer which they had locked. Oh, I didn't realise I'd be talking this much. Bloody hell. I'm naturally observant, as you may have remarked, Mr. Holmes, and I soon had a pretty good plan of the whole house in my head. There was one wing, however, which appeared not to be inhabited at all. A door which faced that which led into the quarter of the Tollers. A door which faced that which led into the quarters of the Tollers, open into their suite, but it was invariably locked. One day, however, as I ascended the stair, I met Mr. Rucastle coming out through this door, his keys in his hand, and a look on his face which made him a very different person to the round, jovial man to whom I was accustomed. His cheeks were red, his brow was all crinkled with anger, and the veins stood out at his temples with passion. He locked the door and hurried past me without a word or a look. This aroused my curiosity. So when I went out for a walk in the grounds with my charge, I strolled around to the side from which I could see the windows of this part of the house. There were 4 of them in a row, 3 of which were simply dirty, while the 4th was shuttered up. They were evidently all deserted. And as I strolled up and down, glancing at them occasionally, Mr. Rucastle came out to me, looking as merry and jovial as ever. The thit does pluck in. Imagine finding your own cut-off hair and then realising, wait, it's not mine, but it is exactly like mine. Ah, said he, you must not think me rude if I passed you without a word, my dear young lady. I was preoccupied with business matters. I assured him that I was not offended. By the way, said I, you seem to have quite a suite of spare rooms up there, and one of them has the shutters up. He looked surprised and, it seemed to me, a little startled at my remark. Photography is one of my hobbies, said he. I have made my dark room up there. But, dear me, what an observant young lady we have come upon. Who would have believed it? Who would ever have believed it? He spoke in a jesting tone, but there was no jest in his eyes as he looked at me. I read suspicion there and annoyance, but no jest. Much less infinite jest. Well, Mr. Holmes, from the moment that I understood that there was something about that suite of rooms which I was not to know, I was all on fire to go over them. Pay no attention to my second floor dark room. It's a dark room, but it's also some dark shit in there. Yep. Oh no, she's clever. What to do with the clever girl with no relations in London? I was all on fire to go over them. It was not mere curiosity, though I have my share of that. It was more a feeling of duty. A feeling that some good might come from my penetrating to this place. Hey, Floridora, they talk of woman's instinct. Perhaps it was woman's instinct which gave me that feeling. At any rate, it was there, and I was keenly on the lookout for any chance to pass the forbidden door. Speaking of. Yeah, good girl. The forbidden door, now passed by Flora. It doesn't matter if I don't get it extremely right because you can't see me that clearly. That's an ad for this type of webcam. You can't see me that clearly. Don't even listen to me, I'm tired. It was only yesterday that the chance came. Oh, yeah. It's like, run, run, girl. This is a horror movie. But I guess you haven't seen any. Unless you think the one with the train was the first horror movie. I may tell you that besides Mr. Rucastle, both Toller and his wife find something to do in those deserted rooms. And I once saw him carrying a huge black linen bag with him through the door. Oh my god. I don't, I'm not. You can call me anything except late for dinner. Wow. He's taking babies to Dracula's 3 awful wives. Anyway, recently he's been drinking hard. And yesterday evening he was very drunk. When I came upstairs, there was the key in the door. I have no doubt at all that he'd left it there. Mr. and Mrs. Rucastle were both downstairs, and the child was with them, so that I had an admirable opportunity. I turned the key gently in the lock, opened the door, and slipped through. Fuck, I hate your voice. I hate your voice so much. I can't keep doing this. Alright, swapsies.
Here is some information for why do I not like my voice? Here's a summary from The Guardian.
Shut up. What are you? Can you hear that? Stop. Stop. Be quiet. Can you hear that?
Does not sound how we expect it to. We don't like it.
Go away. Yeah. No, it's not Biddy Boob time. Watson and Miss Hunter are going to swap voices, and now Watson's going to be the Australian. And now Miss Hunter is going to be the Scotsman. the Scottish person. I turned the key gently in the lock, opened the door, and slipped through. There was a little passage in front of me, unpapered and uncarpeted, which turned at a right angle at the farther end. Round this corner were 3 doors in a line, the first and third of which were open. They each led into an empty room, dusty and cheerless, with 2 windows in the one and one in the other, so thick with dirt that the evening light glimmered dimly through them. The centre door was closed, and across the outside of it had been fastened one of those broad bars of an iron bed, padlocked at one end to a ring in the wall, and fastened at the other with stout cord. The door itself was locked as well, and the key was not there. This barricaded door corresponded clearly with the shuttered window outside, and yet I could see by the glimmer from beneath it that the room was not in darkness. Evidently there was a skylight which let in light from above. As I stood in the passage, gazing at the sinister door and wondering what secret it might veil, a shade of animosity. Oh yeah. I mean, no. Some of my best friends are half Australian. As I stood in the passage, gazing at the sinister door and wondering what secret it might veil, I suddenly heard the sound of steps within the room and saw a shadow pass backward and forward against the little slit of dim light which shone out from under the door. A mad, unreasoning terror rose up in me at the sight, Mr. Holmes. My overstrung nerves failed me suddenly, and I turned and ran as though some dreadful hand were behind me, clutching at the skirt of my dress. I rushed down the passage, through the door, and straight into the arms of Mr. Rucastle, who was waiting outside. So, said he, smiling, it was you, then. I thought that it must be when I saw the door open. Oh, I am so frightened, I panted. Och, och, och. That might be what that sounds like. My dear young lady, my dear young lady. Oh, you cannot You cannot think how caressing and soothing his manner was. And what has frightened you, my dear young lady? But his voice was just a little too coaxing. He overdid it. I was keenly on my guard against him. I was foolish enough to go into the empty wing, I answered. But it's so lonely and eerie in this dim light that I was frightened and ran out again. Oh, it's so dreadfully still in there. Only that? Said he, looking at me keenly. Why, what did you think? I asked. Why do you think that I lock this door? I'm sure that I do not know. It is to keep people out who have no business there. Do you see? He was still smiling in the most amiable manner. I am sure that if I had known, well then, you know now. And if you ever put your foot over that threshold again. Here, in an instant, the smile hardened into a grin of rage, and he glared down at me with the face of a demon. I'll throw you to the mastiff. Just say dog. Just say dog, Dracula. I was so terrified that I do not know what I did. I suppose that I must have rushed past him into my room. I remember nothing until I found myself lying on my bed, trembling all over. Then I thought of you, Mr. Holmes. I could not live there longer without some advice. I was frightened of the house, of the man, of the woman, of the servants, even of the child. They were all horrible to me. Come on, Fitzy. Yeah, speaking of people who are horrible to me. The face of a demon. Thank you. I started talking in a Scottish accent during a D&D game, where I was a tiny little Scottish grifter, bard, tiefling thing. And now I think I'm some kind of saint. Not sure. If I could only bring you down, all would be well. Of course, I might have fled from the house, but my curiosity was almost as strong as my fears. My mind was soon made up. I would send you a wire. I put on my hat and cloak, went down to the office, which is about half a mile from the house, and then returned, feeling very much easier. A horrible doubt came into my mind as I approached the door lest the dog might be loose. But I remembered that Toller had drunk himself into a state of insensibility that evening, and I knew that he was the only one in the household who had any influence with the savage creature, or who would venture to set him free. I slipped in safety and lay awake half the night in my joy at the thought of seeing you. I had no difficulty in getting leave to come into Winchester this morning, but I must be getting back before 3 o'clock, for Mr. and Mrs. Rucastle are going on a visit and will be away all the evening, so that I must look after the child. Now, I have told you all of my adventures, Mr. Holmes, and I should be very glad if you could tell me what it all means, and above all, what I should do. Yeah, I guess. Mm-hmm. Swings and houndabouts. It's like the saying swings and roundabouts, but I said hound because we were talking about dogs. I'm just such a genius. Holmes and I had listened spellbound to this extraordinary story. My friend rose now. It was very extraordinary because her voice completely changed during it, and I sensed that mine had as well. My friend rose now and paced up and down the room, his hands in his pockets, and an expression of the most profound gravity upon his face. Is Toller still drunk? He asked. But enough about me. What are you into? What kind of music do you like? Master of Winchester. Never shuts up. Yes, I heard his wife tell Mrs. Rucastle that she could do nothing with him. Yeah, that's well. And so the Rucastles are going out, like, tonight. Yes. Is there a cellar, like, with a good strong lock? Yes, the wine cellar. Fitz, you gotta wait, my love. I'm nearly there. You seem to me to have acted all through this matter like a very brave and sensible girl, Miss Hunter. Do you think that you could perform one more, like, feat? I should not ask it of you if I did not think you, like, kind of an exceptional woman. I will try. What is it? Okay, so we shall be at the Copper Beeches by, like, 7 o'clock, my friend and I. The Rucastles will be gone by that time, and Toller will, we hope, be, like, incapable. So there only remains Mrs. Toller, who might give the alarm. So if you could send her into the cellar, like, on an errand, and then just, like, turn the key, you would facilitate matters immensely. I will do it. Excellent! We shall then look thoroughly into the affair. Of course, there's only one feasible explanation. Like, you've been brought there to impersonate somebody, and the real person is imprisoned in the chamber, right? I mean, that's obvious. And as to who this prisoner is, I have no doubt it's the daughter. You know, Miss Alice Rucastle? Was it Alice? If I remember right, who was said to have gone to America. You were chosen, doubtless, as, like, resembling her in, like, height and the figure and the color of your hair, and so, like, hers had been cut off, very possibly in some illness through which she's passed, and so, of course, like, yours had to be cut off too. And, like, by a curious chance, you came upon her tresses, right? So the man in the road was undoubtedly some friend of hers. Like, maybe her fiancé. And no doubt, as you wore the girl's dress and were so like her, he was convinced from your laughter whenever he saw you, and, like, afterwards from your gesture, that Miss Rucastle was perfectly happy and that she no longer desired his attentions. So the dog's let loose at night to prevent him from, you know, endeavouring to, like, communicate with her. So much is fairly clear. The most serious point in this case is the disposition of the child. What on earth has that got to do with it? I ejaculated, realising too late I seem to have swapped accents with the girl. Oh, my dear Watson. You, as a medical man, are continually gaining light as to the tendencies of a child by the study of the parents. Don't you see the converse is, like, equally valid, though? I have frequently gained my first real insight into the character of parents by studying their children. And this child's disposition is abnormally cruel, like, merely for cruelty's sake. And whether he derives this from his, you know, his smiling father, as I should suspect, or, like, from his mother, bodes evil for the poor girl who's in their power. I am sure that you are right, Mr. Holmes, cried our client. My inner monologue is still the same voice. Come on then, up, come on. Up, up, or thou shalt have none. Up. Let's see. Mr. Fitz. I call him Huge Fitzcan. I call you lots of things, don't I, my love? Oh, it's going on the couch. Oh, okay, look it off the couch before you... The bear is feasting. All right, my love, all gone. All gone. He doesn't want to cuddle when he's in treat mode. Mr. Fitzgerald, Excuse me, he's named for Zelda Fitzgerald, not F. Scott. My opinion? F. Scott Fitzgerald. Guy plagiarized his wife's shit. Do you want to go outside, my love? You just came in, remember? Sometimes when I'm late getting their dinner, they like to go in and out of the door a bunch, just to annoy me. I'm sure you are right, Mr. Holmes, cried our client. 1,000 things come back to me which make me certain that you have hit it. Oh, let us not lose an instant in bringing help to this poor creature. Oh, we must be circumspect, though, for we're dealing with a very cunning man. So we can do nothing until like 7 o'clock. At that hour, we should be with you, and like won't be long before we solve the mystery or whatever. We were as good as our word, for it was just 7 when we reached the copper Beeches, having put up our trap at a wayside public house. That it's not a trap is a means of conveyance, it's a vehicle. They're not just carrying around a bear trap. The group of trees, with their dark leaves shining like burnished metal in the light of the setting sun, was sufficient to mark the house, even had Miss Hunter not been standing, smiling, on the doorstep. Yeah, have you managed it? Asked Holmes, taking a random pill he found on the ground. A loud thudding noise came from somewhere downstairs. That is Mrs. Toller in the cellar, said she. Her husband lay snoring on the kitchen rug. Here are his keys. Here are his keys, which are the duplicates of Mr. Rucastle's. You've done well indeed, cried Holmes with enthusiasm. Now you lead the way, and we shall soon see the end of this black business. We passed up the stair, unlocked the door, followed on down a passage, and found ourselves in front of the barricade which Miss Hunter had described. It's denouement time. Can I get a denouement going in the chat? Or an English word that means the same thing. Do we have one? No, we just stole another one. Denouement! 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 Where am I up to? Found ourselves in front of the barricade which Miss Hunter had described. Holmes cut the cord and removed the transverse bar. Then he tried the various keys in the lock, but without success. No sound came from within, and at the silence, Holmes's face clouded over. The denouement is the end bit where all the shit goes down. It's the climax of the film, of the story. The denouement. Yeah, the part of the story where Chekhov's gun goes off and all the shit comes out, and it's fantastic. Not quite the ending, but the bit we came to see. The bit all the build-up was about. Come on. At the silence, Holmes's face clouded over. I trust that we're not too late, said he. I think, Miss Hunter, that we better go in without you. Okay, Watson, put your shoulder to it. We'll see whether we cannot make our way in. It was an old rickety door and gave at once before our united strength. Together we rushed into the room. It was empty. There was no furniture save a little pallet bed, a small table, and a basket full of linen. The skylight above was open, and the prisoner gone. There's been some villainy here, said Holmes. This beauty has guessed Miss Hunter's intentions and he's carried the victim off. Shit! But how? Through the skylight. We shall soon see how he managed it. He swung himself up onto the roof. Oh, yeah, he cried. Here's the end of a long, light ladder against the eaves. That's how he did it. But It is impossible, said Miss Hunter. The ladder was not there when the Rucastles went away. Well, he's come back and done it. I tell you that he is a clever and dangerous man. I should not be very much surprised if that were he whose step we can hear on the stair. Okay, Watson, I think it would be as well for you to have your pistol ready. The words were hardly out of his mouth before a man appeared at the door of the room, a very burly man, with a heavy stick in his hand. Miss Hunter screamed and shrunk against the wall at the sight of him, but Sherlock Holmes sprang forward and confronted him. "You villain," said he. "Where's your daughter?" The fat man cast his eyes around. I have cut out so many adjectives about this man's weight. Like, Conan Doyle had some odd ideas. And then up at the open skylight. "It is for me to ask you that," he shrieked. "You thieves, spies, and thieves! I have caught you, have I? You are in my power. I'll serve you." He turned and clattered down the stairs as hard as he could go. I haven't had a denouement in quite a long time. Quite a long time. "He's gone for the dog," cried Miss Hunter. "Well, I have my revolver," said I. "Oh, shit, better close the front door," cried Holmes, and we all rushed down the stairs together. We had hardly reached the hall when we heard the baying of a hound. "Arr, arr, arr, arr." Was that? Yeah, pretty much. It's not a dog. It's a Dracula wolf. And then a scream of agony with a horrible worrying sound, which it was dreadful to listen to. Could have sounded a bit like that. Probably not. An elderly man with a red face and shaking limbs came staggering out at a side door. "Oh my God!" he cried. "Someone's loosed the dog. It's not been fed for 2 days. Quick, quick, or it'll be too late." Holmes and I rushed out and round the angle of the house, with Toller hurrying behind us. There was the huge, famished brute, its black muzzle buried in Rucastle's throat, while he writhed and screamed upon the ground. Running up, I blew its brains out, and it fell over with its keen white teeth still meeting in the great creases of his neck. Oh, Watson. Shot the wrong creature. Yeah, I can't remember what dogs sound like. It's been too long. Poor me. Poor me. With much labour, we separated them and carried him, living but horribly mangled, into the house. I'm really glad I didn't text Evelyn for this one because I did not remember a dog died. Oh, yeah, no, it was the dog who wasn't fed for ages. It was a Ramsay Snow style situation. Living but horribly mangled into the house, we laid him upon the drawing room sofa, and having dispatched the sobered Toller to bear the news to his wife, I did what I could to relieve his pain. We were all assembled around him when the door opened, and a tall, gaunt woman entered the room. "Mrs. Toller!" cried Miss Hunter. "Yes, miss. I have a normal voice, because Catherine's forgotten how to do anything. Mr. Rucastle let me out when he came back before he went up to you. Oh, miss, it's a pity you didn't let me know what you were planning, for I would have told you that your pains were wasted. That's right, none of you thought about me, did you? Oh, Toller, the drunk servant. You heard all about him, and you knew that he had a wife, but you didn't think about me, did you?" Oh, no, sorry, the official text ends at that your pains were wasted. "Ha!" said Holmes, looking keenly at her. "It's clear that Mrs. Toller knows more about this matter than anyone else." Honestly, hilarious. "Yes, sir, I do, and I am ready enough to tell what I know." "Yeah, pray, sit down, and let us hear it, for there are several points on which I must confess that I am actually still in the dark." I will soon make it clear to you, said she, and I'd have done so before now if I could have got out from a cellar. If there's police court business over this, you'll remember that I was the one who stood your friend, and that I was Miss Alice's friend too. She was never happy at home, Miss Alice wasn't. Oh, Christ, I'm glad I didn't put on an accent. From the time that her father married again. She was slighted, and had no say in anything. But it never really became bad for her until after she met Mr. Fowler at a friend's house. Ooh, Mr. Fowler. As well as I could learn, Miss Alice had rights of her own by will. But she was so quiet and patient, she was, that she never said a word about them, but just left everything in Mr. Rucastle's hands. He knew he was safe with her. But when there was a chance of a husband coming forward, who would ask for all that the law would give him, then her father thought it time to put a stop on it. He wanted her to sign a paper so that whether she married or not, he could use her money. When she wouldn't do it, he kept on worrying her until she got brain fever and for 6 weeks was at death's door. Then she got better at last, all worn to a shadow and with her beautiful hair cut off. That didn't make no change in her young man, and he stuck to her, as true as man can be. Wow. The balls of this guy, even for Victorian times, that is kind of shocking. Ah, said Holmes. I think that what you've been good enough to tell us makes the matter fairly clear, and that I can deduce all that remains. So Mr. Rucastle then, I presume, took to the system of, imprisonment. Yes, sir. And brought Miss Hunter down from London in order to get rid of the disagreeable persistence of dreamy Mr. Fowler, right? That was it, sir. But Mr. Fowler, being a persevering man, and as a good seaman should be, blockaded the house, and having met you, succeeded by certain, arguments, metallic or otherwise, in convincing you that, your interests were the same as his. Mr. Fowler was a very kind-spoken, free-handed gentleman, said Mrs. Toller serenely. And in this way, he managed that your good man should have no want of drink, and the ladder should be ready at the moment when your master had gone out. You have it, sir, just as it happened. Seaman. I'm on the seaman diet. That's it, that's a joke. I see men and I don't bother to diet. Oh, sorry, the story still goes. I'm sure that we owe you, an apology, Mrs. Toller, said Holmes. For you, certainly cleaned up everything that puzzled us. And here comes the country surgeon and Mrs. Rucastle, so I think, Watson, that, we had best escort Miss Hunter back to Winchester, because it seems to me that, our locus standi now is rather a questionable one. Mucho gusto, molto bene. No, they say bong jaw, meaning the kind of jaw that you get from using a bong all the time. If you've got a bong where it's quite big and you have to, I think that's why. It's from olden time where the bongs were bigger and mouths were smaller. And thus was solved the mystery of the sinister house with the copper beeches in front of the door. Mr. Rucastle survived, but was always a broken man, kept alive solely through the care of his devoted wife. They still live with their old servants, who probably know so much of Rucastle's past life that he finds it difficult to part from them. Mr. Fowler and Miss Rucastle were married, by special license, in Southampton the day after their flight, and he is now the holder of a government appointment in the island of Mauritius. He's colonizing. As to Miss Violet Hunter, my friend Holmes, rather to my disappointment, manifested no further interest in her, once she had ceased to be the centre of one of his problems, and she is now the head of a private school at Walsall, where I believe she has met with considerable success. The end. I love how after all that, Watson's like, I thought I saw a little spark there, and Holmes is like, what? I don't No. Thank you. That one was a struggle and it lasted nearly 2 hours. Very sorry. Yeah, this conversation is au revoir. Okay. I'm trying to think of another joke, but I probably can't. All right, I really have to go feed the cats now, otherwise they're going to go mad. And I've got to add something to the thing. Does the dog die? Yes. So that Evelyn won't watch it. So thanks everybody for being here. I hope you enjoyed my incredibly long fake hair. It's really cool. Yeah, they never found the photography darkroom. Crazy. That was the only part I was interested in. Thanks for being here, you guys. See you not tomorrow because that's Dungeons and Dragons, although maybe earlier in the day tomorrow. Don't know. See you guys when I see you. Be kind to each other. Wash your hands. If you're doing Thanksgiving, give thanks for me, I guess. Bye, everyone.